Everybody, welcome back to Metal Mill 52. Hope you're having a good week. In this week's episode, you're going to see the finishing touches of putting the spindle together. I just finished machining out the little 40-degree taper in there so it fits the WW collets that I'll have to make for my mounting pieces, but there's a WW collet in there. Obviously, I'm not going to be using these to hold the grinding things unless I have a tiny grinding stone or something like a Dremel. But I got those are Shoreline collets. I got them to test fit with. So let me tilt the camera down here, and I wanted to show you something else, kind of talk about the next evolution in the project. So here we go, tilting down, let me loosen the back. Sorry about my hands being in the way, y'all. All right, here we go. And first, this is Russ's little chuck sled that he made for me. I've had it set over here. Let me move it out of the way, and I can show you the rest of the stuff. But what a handy thing. Thank you again, Russ. I appreciate you making these things for me. All right. So here we go. Here's the spindle. Yay. So happy it's finished. I got it all together. And wanted to show, I had dug out, remember I talked about my little mini tinker. I had a shoebox that's set aside over there that was marked for my mini tinker parts. Here is one of the little collet type things that I made for holding end mills for grinding in the mini tinker. And then here are some little aluminum arbors that I had made for different grinding wheels. So that's what I wanted to get out, because I was sure that I had a diamond coated grinding wheel. This is a Chinese one, I think, that I got off of eBay many years ago. And I definitely want to use this on the Quorn. So I'm going to have to make an arbor for it. And I think I'm finally going to use up some of my stock of aluminum around stock that I've got laying around to make arbors. So we'll see about that. Here is a little cup wheel that I had gotten. It's an old one, you can tell. It's a carborundum. It's a pink wheel. And I'm actually using, this is a Shopsmith. I think it must have had 1.25 inch, center diameter, because this is a Shopsmith arbor. And I've got a sleeve in there. So I must have used this on my regular bench grinder with my mini tinker. Just kind of an interesting thing. Had another little carborundum grinding wheel, looks like a 1/2 inch center hole. And this is something I'd used on my mini tinker too, was a diamond saw blade. I can't remember, I don't think I had very good results, but it might have been handy for gashing of end mills. If you don't know what that is, you can Google it. But when you grind the end of an end mill, sometimes you get it, if you grind it back, the web part of it is thick, and you have to like make a little extra space. Like drills, you don't have that problem because the spiral is pretty consistent, but an end mill has a thicker center to it, so sometimes you have to do what they call gashing. And this diamond wheel, I think that's what I use that for, mounted on the grinder and use that to gash the end mills. So anyway, this is the intro for this week's segment. I want to thank everybody. I guess I can flip this back up again. Thank you all again for your comments. It's really fun to talk to everybody through the miracle of the internet. And if you'll stay tuned for the next few minutes, you'll see the segments about me that culminate with me boring the center hole for the WW collet. So thanks again, everybody. Welcome again to the new subscribers. Please stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy this week's update. Thank you. Hey, while I'm swapping out the chucks, I wanted to show this cool thing that my friend Russ did. He came by on Saturday, excuse me, and brought me these two custom-made chuck trays, I guess you'd call them, the chuck loaders. Pretty awesome. And Russ, I got this to fit. All I did was I took off the little extra strip on the bottom there. It was a little bit of a snug fit at first, but fits good now. He also made one for the large 4-jaw chuck, and that's sitting on the ground there, so you can kind of see how they're made. Anyway, it's going to be very helpful. I appreciate that. Thank you, Russ. So now I'll take off the 3-jaw, put on the 5-seat. So here's the setup I was talking about for getting the 20-degree angle set just right. If you saw the needle move, I'm not shocked. There is some variability. I've got it within about a 1/2 thou on that short distance of travel, and I tried it with several of these little WW collets. So there is some variability in them. I mean, they're nice products, but it's not perfect precision. So I think within a half thou over that travel is going to be just fine. Okay, just to touch on setups for a second. I've got the steady rest in place, and I was hoping, against hope, that I could align the spindle and the 3-jaw chuck and, you know, orient it correctly. It's not that difficult to get it level on the horizon, but when you, as soon as you flop the indicator over, as soon as you flop the indicator over and then make adjustments fore and aft, you know, the longitudinal dimensions, that then you can adjust that too, and then you bring it back to this axis, and it's all over the place. So I'm going to take this apart and put the 4-jaw chuck on, and we'll line it up that way. Okay, so I wish I would have started out this way. It's taken me a whopping 15 minutes. I put the 4-jaw chuck on, tightened it all up, got the brass nut centered in the hex nut centered in the 4 jaws. I just used my indicator for that with the indicator down here, move the indicator here. I had the end of this supported in the rotating tailstock, so it was pretty close, obviously, within a few thou actually. And then I just ran this thing through, and I did have to make some fine adjustments with these controls here on the on the steady rest, but it's worked out fine. So I'll just tighten stuff up, put the top on, and the next step, what I'm thinking is, now that I'm really certain that this the tube is straight, I'll go ahead and I'm going to put the indicator, I'll use a different indicator, the little inter-rapid half thou indicator I can put inside the snout there, and make sure that the spindle is perfectly straight, perfectly indicated, straight and level before I start machining the 40-degree taper. But having it to this point, I'm quite confident that everything's extremely close. I mean, within a thou or so on the outside, so it should be very close on the inside. We'll find out in a minute. It's the final step of getting things set up before I bore the 40-degree taper for the WW collets that are going to hold the tools. I got the 4-jaw chuck on, got that carefully centered. I carefully centered the snout. I put my little half thou inter-rapid indicator here in its little stand, and I've just a little bit of fine tuning with the different pieces of the steady rest, and I've got it within plus or minus a thou on either side. It's about as good as I can get it. And then I used my little wrench and tightened these down, a little 10mm wrench, tighten down the nuts there. So I'm giving it a final spin. You'll see, don't be alarmed if you see a little movement in that needle. That's like I said, it's a half thou indicator. So when it wigs out two tick marks either side, then it's only a thou plus or minus, and that's just a drilled and reamed hole, a 5/16 inch hole. So I figure plus or minus a thousandths on either side is pretty darn good. And I know that the WW collets that I bought from Shoreline to be my little test pieces, they were certainly about that tolerance too. I noticed that when I was setting the angle, the 20-degree angle. So I think I'm all set now, and I'll probably get up and cut the angle pretty soon here, and I will bring you back for that process. I'm going to do it just like Maddie did, basically. cutting the actual taper in the spindle. It's going good so far. I think I might actually try a higher RPM since I'm using a carbide cutter. I'm taking very light cuts. These boring bars do have some spring to them. I've got my sample ready. So let me cut the lathe off. I've been at 220 RPM. Let me put it up to 360. See what that goes like. It's weird. The lathe wants to vibrate at 360. I don't like that. There's something strange going on there. That is not good. Try a different RPM. Let's try 600. See if it vibrates there. Better. I noticed when Maddie was doing this, he had a pretty high RPM rate. So what I'm going to do is return everything to 0, and then I'll do a little test fit. Then I'm going to turn the camera off because you don't really, I'm sure y'all aren't interested in seeing all this stuff. But I just zeroed the DRO. So I've got this so that the tool is just about touching the work, so I can just back it out like this, clean this off, and do a little test fit with one of these Shoreline WW collets. Well, it balled up inside there. There we go. I still got quite a ways to go. You probably can't see that very well, but it's just barely going in, which is good. There's tons of room to go. So I'll keep machining this without the camera on, and I'll bring you back when we're just about done. Okay, I'm getting close. I took several more passes, and as I'll take the camera out of the little mount in a minute, but I also put on a much shorter and smaller boring tool. It's an interesting thing about this entire project. There's a lot of boring work that goes on to make a Quorn. So let me just do a little test fit here. Ooh, we're close. So a few more passes, I think we're going to be good to go. I'll leave the camera running for a few minutes and show you a little bit. This is at the higher RPM, the 600 RPM. So with the shorter throw on the boring tool, you have to get pretty close. It's kind of weird. I'm trying to get to my 0 points, if you will. There we go. Alright. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, but check this out. I hope you can see it. So been taking off about 15 thou at a time, which is only a depth of cut of 7 thou. I've been doing this manual feed. You can see that with my hands. Slowly forward and back. Took about 2 or 3 cuts here. You see I'm getting a pretty nice finish. It's not perfect. I'll polish it up a little bit. But let's see, move this back. Alright. There's about a 20 thou cut. The reason I put this bigger or the smaller cutter on, I could literally see a little deflection when I was taking the angle cuts before. This might be pretty close. I'm going to stop after this one. We'll feed it back out real slowly. Another nice thing, I noticed when Maddie did his video like this that he actually put his hands on the body of the spindle to see if it got warm or anything, and it didn't. So there's my 0, 0. Turn that off, move that out of the way, get the dust out of the way. Now that dang thing is right in your way, isn't it? Sorry. Get that out of the way here. Okay. Test fitting the little shoreline. Ooh, yes, yes, yes. I'm going to take just a wee bit more off. Very nice. It's a nice fit. You can just tell how, it's snug how it fits in there. So I'm pretty happy about that. So let's just do a couple more. Everybody says they want to see actual machining shots, so I will do my best to make you happy with that. It's supposed to get cold here this weekend. So I'm trying to get, this is Friday night, I'm out here trying to get this done and having a meeting with my local buddies here tomorrow, so hopefully I can get this thing published Saturday. So here we go, let's set it up. Take another 10th thou off here. I'm going to feed it really super slowly. Again, the lathe is turning at 600 RPM. Looks like it's making a nice cut. I can see the little cut line in there. I had to grind the boring tool down, make it smaller so it would not interfere with the opposite side. I'll show that when I get done here. Right. Let's check it again. Crank the machine back up to right where it's touching. Let's zero everything out. Probably don't really need to do that, but it's kind of a good work habit. Alright, how are we looking here? Ooh, yes. We're going to take one more cut at about 10 thou. Let me try some of the other collets, because these things are not all exactly the same. I know when I get to making my holders for the wheels, they're gonna, the head on them will be a lot different from these things. Alright, that's good. Trying these. Of course, they're all the same size collets. And the only thing I'm trying to avoid is making the hole too big where the collet sinks in, so to speak. So I see a little gap. There's about a 1/16 of an inch there, which is just about right. Want to just want to see the edge of the shoulder, if you will, of the collet showing, for my purposes anyway. Alright, crank it back to 0 on the Z, or Z as the Brits say. There we go. Alright, we got everything zeroed out. Back that off. I don't usually run my lathe at this high of a speed. It's interesting that noise it's making on startup. There are belts that drive the gears. I guess the belts are chirping a little bit. There's a lot of torque in that motor. Alright. One more cut at 5 wells 10 thou. Okay, let's just take that. Make it super easy here. Keep that tool moving. Check the fit. There's one more thing I'm going to do. I noticed there's a little bit of irregularity there where my face of my spindle, where I Loctited the two pieces together. Probably only a couple of thou, but I think I'm going to take and shave that off while I've got this set up here. Alright, so let's see. Move this back out. I think we're going to be good right here. Oh yes, that is going to be just perfect. Alright, just like Maddie did, I'm going to take some emery cloth. Well, I'll show you how to do that. Fold it up. Just shine that a little bit. Being very careful to keep my fingers clear. It's 400 grit sandpaper. Just clear that out, shine it up, get rid of any little tool marks that are in there. Oh yeah, this is really good. Now let's check it out again. Until it stops. Oh my goodness, that is so perfect. So yeah, I'm gonna change out the tool and just put my put this one on. Let me show you. This is the boring bar, little cut down boring bar. Hang on a second, can't see that real good. Put something behind it. See if it focuses. It's a tiny little thing. I use one of the smallest, shortest ones that I have, and I cut it. There we go. I cut it down. I had to reduce the profile, the bottom. I don't know if you can see the grinding marks down here. I had to make it tiny so it would fit in that little hole for the spindle. So the shorter that is, the less deflection. So that worked out pretty good. All right, I'm going to turn the camera off here and take one final pass, then we'll take it all apart. Okay, I took a couple thou off just to clean it up. Now I'm polishing the face of this with the 400 grit emery cloth sandpaper as well. It looks really pretty. I realized while I was getting that vibration, I couldn't figure that out at first at the higher RPM. And then I realized that the jaws are actually offset because I have 4 jaws gripping a hex nut. Glad I was a little worried about the lathe at first, but I think we're fine. Alright, so there we go. I'm going to call that good. This is very exciting to me. I'll do one more check to make sure the bore is clean, but, you know, just like... Oh, sorry, y'all. Had the TV on. Watching an old Western, or listening to it. But just like Maddie did, you know, it's interesting to feel the bearings, feel the spindle shaft to see if there's any warmth coming out of the bearings. There's not, and there's no wiggle at all. It ran smooth. The noise you heard was the startup of the belts driving the lathe itself. So really excited about how this has come out, this spindle. I'll go ahead and take it out now and do a little wrap-up segment, and we'll publish this video. You know, if y'all can bear with me for another couple seconds, I wanted to show this is a nice feature about this Grizzly lathe. I've had this lathe for a number of years now, but this is really the first time I've actually used the steady rest extensively, you know, for a specific purpose. I think I've had it on there a couple times before, but really with purpose. But the top just comes off like that, and so now I can just loosen the jaws of the 4-jaw. Take this out. I should have cut the power off first. Silly me. Safety first. Take the jaws of the 4-jaw off. And this should come right out. And there we go. There's the finished spindle. So now I'll do a little wrap-up video and kind of talk about the next steps. Thanks, everybody. Matter of fact, I think I'll make the next video the introduction for this week's episode. So this will be my last segment of this presentation. Here's the finished spindle. Really excited about how it came out. Thank you for bearing with me for the process of putting this together and all the measurements and everything. And thanks for the comments too. A couple of you have actually built these things and made comments that yes, the dimensions are a little bit off. So it's very strange that we're just now talking about that. I guess maybe everybody else figured it out along the way. But very happy to have this done. Very happy that it works. We'll see. We'll get to Quorn. We're coming down to the final stretch. I need to wire up the motor, and I've got my friends helping me with the reversing switch methodology for that. So, again, thanks. Have a great week, everybody. Again, thoughts and prayers to all the folks in Ukraine. I hope that situation gets settled quickly, as we all do, I'm sure. And if you haven't seen it, if you follow Rustinox, I think his name is Michel. I think he's from France or Belgium. He did a very nice tribute video. He just published it tonight, I think, about the suffering of the children over there. So Rusty, Michel, way to go, man. Appreciate you, and maybe we can get the whole world to come to its senses. I sure hope so. Take care, everybody.